What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Swift video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at states in Swift UI. So we're simply just going to jump right in and do an example. But before we do that, make sure you smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. If you're new, hit subscribe while you're at it. And let's jump right in. So let's open up Xcode and create a new project. And we're going to stick with a single view application. Let's call this states in Swift UI. The only important thing you need to make sure is set on here is the interface should be Swift UI. If it's storyboard, go ahead and change it to Swift UI. And it should go without saying that your language should be in Swift. So go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to save it to our desktop, and we are going to jump right in. So what the heck are states? So states defined by Apple are basically what they sound like. It's a way for SwiftUI to manage a state property in your class or struct for you. So if you're familiar with the traditional way of building out UI-kit applications, let's say you have a screen, a view controller, where you have some data being shown. Let's say it's an image. And if the user has tapped on the screen, you want it to be zoomed in. And if they tap again, you want to zoom it out. So the workflow around that would basically be observe the tap gesture, save it into a property, and then every time it changes, do a did set and then update the view. So there's a little bit of overhead involved. And you can imagine with larger applications, especially ones at scale, it becomes a lot of work to handle it. So Apple introduced this thing called state. And I think the best way to learn about it is by doing an example. So I'm going to start by going to my XC assets and just creating an image in here. And I'll just call it image. And I'm going to go ahead and drag in this image. This is a thumbnail I made for another video that I have coming up soon for Xcode 12. So we're going to drag that guy in, and we're going to go back to our content view. And what I'm going to start by doing is change the preview over here to use a newer device. So we're going to add a modifier for the preview device, and we're going to pass in a preview device with a raw value of iPhone 11. And let me also expand my Xcode window and close this left panel here. Now let's go ahead and hit resume in our preview so we can see all the stuff pop up. All right, let me make this a little smaller. All right, looking good. So we have our text in here. So let's start by adding a image, and let's show the image that we just dragged in. And I think we can pass it in directly. What did we call it? Image. And we see our image here, and you can see that it's maintaining the aspect ratio, but of course it's cut off on the ends of the screen since it's a wide image. So what we could do is we could add resizable onto this, which is another modifier, and you'll see that now it fits on the screen, but of course it is stretched. So we can add another modifier called content mode, I believe. Just kidding, it's called aspect ratio. And the content mode we're going to use is fit, and now you see that it shows on the screen appropriately. So what we want to do is we want a way for the user to tap on this and for the image to kind of zoom in. So basically we want it to go back to this state when they tap onto it. And the way we can actually achieve that is very, very simple. So we want basically to switch between fill and fit. Let me go ahead and see what that looks like. Let's hit this little play button to get the live preview, and you see it'll fill. Sometimes the previews are a little annoying, so you'll make a code change and they don't update here. And sometimes that'll lead to you thinking that you broke something, but it's just Xcode being dumb as usual. So let's go ahead and add a property, and we'll see how to use state with it. So if we add a property called isZoomed, and it's going to be a Boolean, and it'll be false by default, we can use this in our modifier here. And we can basically say, if it's zoomed, we want this to be fit. Otherwise, we want it to be fill. And let's see, why is this complaining? This is complaining because we don't need this here. You'll see everything highlights now. And if we go ahead and pause this and play it again, things should be unzoomed. Let's see, if zoomed is true, we want it to be fit. Oh, just kidding. We want it to be fill. And if it's not zoomed, we want it to be fit. And if we go ahead and pause and replay, it should fix itself, but apparently not. We'll figure out why in a second. But just to continue along, whenever we tap on the image, we want the state to change or that property to change. So we can say .on tap gesture. We're going to say self.this, and we can call toggle, which will switch between the true or false values. And you'll see we'll get an error here in just a second. And this is basically saying the self is immutable. So that might be confusing because we've marked is zoomed as a var, so it should be mutable. But what it's actually saying is that you need to also mark this with a state identifier. And you'll see this error goes away. And now what you're able to do, if I go ahead and hit resume over here, you'll see that it starts off in this fit position, which it should, because we changed it. We're saying if it's zoomed, AKA this is true, show it in fills, otherwise it's in fits. And what you'll see now when we tap on the image, it goes to the filled position. And what's happening under the hood, which is really impressive, is SwiftUI says, okay, this thing is a state, right? And when you tap on it, we just call the toggle on it. So if it's false, it goes to true and vice versa. But because it's a state, SwiftUI under the hood says, okay, the state is driving some layout of the view. Therefore, it just changed, so I need to recompute my view. So every time we tap it, under the hood, SwiftUI is actually rebuilding the entire view by calling this body property. And what's really impressive about this is you no longer, as the engineer or the developer, need to think about all the various little edge cases. So long as you supply the proper state annotations and the other data flow, SwiftUI will take care of it for you. So Apple is also really big about having people understand that some types of data elements in your code will be a state property, like the one we have here. So it defines that the state is, and then some other things will be derived from the state. In this case, we're deriving whether this image should be fit or fill from the state. And it's super cool that it's really easy to do this. We don't need to call any other callbacks or completion handlers. And what you can even do, which I think this gets really cool once you start like stringing these things together, is you could wrap this whole toggle thing in a with animation. Let's see if this actually works because I haven't dealt with it in quite a while. If we run this again, you'll see now it actually even zooms in. And you know, if you use traditional UI kit to do this, you would have to write a little more code to basically adjust it. And the cooler thing is, in UI kit code, you have to handle, what if the user just keeps like pounding on the screen and tapping it? We need to interrupt the animation. So you see here, it's very subtle to notice, but when I tap it and just press it once, it animates it nicely. But if I tap this a million times, you can see the animation can be interrupted and things just flow fluidly and just look correct out of the box. And this is one of the really powerful things about SwiftUI is by just marking this state, it allows us to use it truly to derive different types of views and view modifiers on our actual UI. And by simply wrapping this in a with animation, you can animate this part of the view changing. So that's a really quick look at states. And of course, we can string a bunch of these together to have really, really elaborate UIs and animations. And I'm not too sure what the modifier is on here, but I think you can also change up the animation by passing in your own type of animation. So you can see you can use $is_zoomed to basically drive the animation. Let's see, what's it complaining about? It's complaining about you need a binding bool. So bindable is the other thing that I plan on making a video about, because bindable, object bindable, and states are basically what are the true fundamental building blocks of any type of data thing in Swift UI. So let's actually go ahead and let's do one more example, since this one's a little trivial. So what I want to do is let's get rid of this guy and Let me add a navigation view here. And in here, we're going to have a list going from 0, say 5. And in here, we're going to have a navigation link, if I can spell it correctly, like that. We're going to want a destination. Don't want the it's active, don't want the label. For the destination, we'll just give it a text view right now. And we need to also return something in the navigation link. And we'll just call this item and we'll append in, this should actually be something like index. And we'll do index +1. Whoops, don't want to open that panel. Let's go ahead and close that left panel. And let's go ahead and hit resume over here. We should see a list now, hopefully. Cool, there we go, looking at a list. And when we tap on it, we just go to some text. So that's all cool and all. What we could do with state in this case is, let's say when we tap on something, we show a given image. We can even use states to pass around things. So this example will be kind of similar to what we just did. So let's say we have a array of images. And let me just actually initialize them in line here. So let's say the first image is going to be system named bookmark. Actually, let's just use our image. We'll just use that image we brought in and we'll make it look different every single time. So we'll say image, image. Let's do 5 of them since our list has 5. Let's add our commas in. That looks like 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, looking good. And now what we can say is whenever we tap on this navigation link, we're going to navigate to something in self.images at that given index. So go ahead and hit resume over here. And let's build, let's click this and we get our image in here. Now what we could do is we could create a property on this guy and pass it in to this as a separate view and use state there. So what I could do is let's extract this to its own view. So let's right click it and you can come down here and hit extract subview. Really nice feature about SwiftUI. And you can say this is my image view. Go ahead and hit enter and it puts it basically down here for you. And it's complaining we don't have an images or an image, which we don't in this view. So we actually want to pass in the image directly. So let's pass in, we're going to pass in an image and then we're going to simply show that image here. Let's take this out and we're going to add it to the initializer for that view like so. And over here, let's just hit resume just to make sure we didn't break anything. Things should still look the same. But now what we can do is let's also pass in that index. And based on that index, we're going to have state control things. So let's also pass in that index and it'll be an index. And then in here, we want to add another property for that index we're passing in like so. We're going to make it a var. And we're going to mark it state. And let's see, what do we want to do? So what we will do is based on this, we are going to add padding. So we're going to say dot padding. And let's see, edges, let's use length. And for padding, we're going to say the padding is basically the index. And on tap gesture, let's see, this actually wants to be a CG float. So we can do CG float and we can wrap index inside of it so it doesn't complain. And on tap gesture, what we're going to do is we're going to say index plus equals 1. So every time we tap on the screen, on this image rather, it will go ahead and increment this and it's going to update the index. So based on, so let's actually see what it looks like. So this should be self dot. And actually, instead of plus equals 1, let's do plus equals like, let's do 100, just so you can see it more easily. So go ahead and hit try again here and see if it complains. Hopefully it didn't break anything. And let's see. So we should be on our other view now. So now if we go ahead and tap into this, looks like it didn't compile properly. So hit stop there. Let this refresh. Go ahead and hit play again. When we tap into one of these, so for example, if I tap into item 1, we see this, and as I keep tapping on it, we should come into the toggle state. Looks like we're not. So let's figure out why we're not. So on padding is CG float index. Let's put something like 200 in here and see what happens. Go ahead and hit pause and resume. Hit this. And it looks like we're not even showing the padding in general. So what I'm going to do is let's use a different property. So let's say I have an easier example in mind. So let's say we have a array of colors in here. So let's say we have colors, and this is color.red, color.blue, and we'll go ahead and have 5. So we're going to say red, blue, green, purple. Let's go with orange. And we'll say based on, so we're still going to increment the index, but 1 this time. And we're going to say the background, rather, will be based on the colors and the index to get the particular color out. And we're also going to make this guy, well, so we're going to make this be resizable so we can actually see the color in the background. And I'm going to wrap this whole thing in a vertical stack. And I'm also going to add a spacer up here and a spacer down here. So we fill up the whole screen. So let's hit resume. Let's see if I broke anything. This is kind of a live demo that I'm thinking of. Okay, so it's definitely stretched. That's not what we want. And we can't even see the background color. So let's also go ahead and change the aspect ratio and make it fit. And let's go ahead and click this again. We still don't see a color, so now I'm getting slightly annoyed. So actually the reason we don't see the color is because we should do this whole thing on the vertical stack. So its background color changes. There we go. So you'll see as we tap this now, we cycle through the colors. And if we keep going, it'll actually crash like that. And it actually won't show any background color. And the reason it does that is because every time we tap, we're incrementing this index thing, and we only have 5 colors in here. So once index becomes 5, because this is enumerated 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we basically don't have any more colors. So what I'll do here is I'll say if self.index is less than 4, because 4 is the last index, we can do that. Otherwise, self.index equals 0. So go ahead and hit pause and play. And let's just take a look at what we have. So we first have this main view where we have a array of images, and we pass on in an image based on what we tap on in our list. And we see the image. In this case, all the images are the same, but of course you can change any of these to be something else. Let's do like a bookmark, and I think ear is an image. Let's go ahead and hit back and hit resume here again to get those updates. So if I hit this now, you'll see we have our bookmark image. Now, once we have passed it in here we have a collection of colors. We have, most importantly, a property, which is an integer that we pass in, and it's marked as a state. And based on that, we have a vertical stack. Spacers just add space, as the name implies, the image. And what we're doing is we're adjusting the background color based on what's in the color at the given index position. And every time we tap on this VStack, on tap gesture, we adjust the index. Now notice we're not telling the color to change, we're just changing the index. So SwiftUI looks at this and it says, okay, index is a state. Therefore, I know that it's driving the UI in some fashion. In our case, it's being used to figure out what color to make the background. So SwiftUI can go and update things. So when I tap anywhere in here, it changes to the next color. And if I keep tapping, it should eventually cycle back to our first color because we have an if else in here. We're saying if the index is less than 4, you can increment. Otherwise, once you get to 4, which is the last item, reset it back to 0, which is our red color, which is what we're on right now. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 0. So that's a quick crash course on states. Hopefully it was pretty clear with those two examples. They're really, really nifty. I think Apple did a great job with them. They have some really good WWDC videos on them that I encourage you to take a look at. If you haven't smashed that like button down below already, make sure to do so for that YouTube algorithm. Hit subscribe while you're at it if you found the video helpful. If you have any questions or suggestions or just want to say hi, throw it down in the comments. I will definitely reply in a day or two. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video.